That outcome of that, as much as that's the discussion in terms of the impact for the huge game on Sunday, Joey, is where you're going to take us with your first crack.
Yeah, it's a great relief for the Brisbane Lions. So we're looking at the state of origin. So Queensland couldn't get the job done at home yesterday against New South Wales. Well, can this Queensland side, Brisbane, get the job done at home against the Sydney Swans on Sunday? Because this is a statement game, I think, for the Brisbane Lions. I think that it's been probably sneaking up on everybody how well they've gone the last 10 weeks. And when you take a look at the ladder since round 8, so once everyone has played 10 matches, Brisbane have only lost one of their last 10 games. It's probably surprised a few, and maybe because when you look at it and say, well, they haven't really beaten anybody in the top 8. But as they've gone through these wins, they have picked off a lot of teams that were above them on the ladder. So when they played Gold Coast at round 8, remember, Gold Coast were above them on the ladder, the same with Bulldogs in round 12, Port Adelaide, Melbourne, and they've just been picking their way through the competition to a point now where this is a statement game. If they can roll the ladder leaders, Sydney Swans, at home, and just put a little shudder through the competition. Remember, this was the pre-season favourites. They were the team coming into the year that everyone thought was the team to beat. They're pretty much fully healthy, so Charlie Cameron now playing. Jack Payne is really the only one that's available for this year. Yeah, that we can talk about. And then when you look at it, the time in front, I mean, then time in front, number one, since round 8. And since round 10, Lachie Neale's the best player in the competition. Oscar McInerney's top 3 ruckman. Hipwood Danaher are in the top 5 key forwards in the competition. They've had 17 players play every game, Kingy. You speak about that, the health is your best friend. Same as Sydney. Next best is 13. So they are fit and healthy. They're in good form. They're in good nick. And I think this is a massive opportunity for the Brisbane Lions to make a statement, not just for them, but for the rest of the competition. They'll be cemented in the top 4, that they are the real deal this year.
It felt like that loss to Hawthorn made us all think, oh, no, it's not real. But yeah. This will be the chance to prove whether it is or it isn't, or at least give us an update on that. And Kingy, Joey mentioned Lachie Neale, as we did last Sunday. You want to talk a little more about what he's done?
In this specific matchup is what I want to talk about, because he's been the 3 votes in the Brownlow both times. The last 2 times they've gone head-to-head. And you just see what this guy does. We know that his clearance game is super strong. I think there's a couple of facets to it. One, there's absolute brilliance from him. And then 2, he stays in the fight longer than most midfielders. This here you can't stop. And he's played against them all. He's played against Rowbottom, he's played against Mills and Rowbottom, who did the tag team, if you like. So there's some things you can't stop, like that. You just can't stop his individual brilliance. But I think you have to beat him once or twice at clearance. This is the sort of stuff that I like. The long hunt. He stays in the clearance at ground level, chasing the footy for 5, 6, 7 seconds. And inevitably, he loses his direct opponent more often than not. So if you're going to beat Lachie Neale, you've got to stay in the dogfight for 5 or 6 seconds, not just that first effort and done.
And Mills and Rowbottom both not playing.
Yeah, that's right.
Mills managed and Rowbottom injured.
Interesting to see what the matchup is with Lachie Neale. And when you talk about the matchups for this game, I think it does favour the Brisbane Lions, Kingy, because Brisbane Lions are the best forward half team in the comp, turning the ball over in their forward half and scoring off it. Sydney are the 3rd worst at turning the ball over in their back half. We've spoken about it. St Kilda identified it. Fremantle did. They give you looks with the way they try and kick the ball out of the back half. So Brisbane, I think, I'll tip Brisbane. I think they can win this. And remember the facet with Sydney that you've spoken about, uncontested marks against the Swans. Take that away, control the ball. Brisbane Lions take the most uncontested marks of any team. So I think the matchup favours the Brisbane Lions.
It's as big a 1 o'clock Sunday game as we've had for a little while. Can't wait for Brisbane and Sydney. We've talked about the ladder and Brisbane's move up it. Each week we do the predictive ladder, and it's the Fremantle-Melbourne game that we're going to talk about this week. The changes that could take place if one team or the other wins. Yeah,
we take a look if Fremantle win, first of all, and they're probably unlikely to move too far. They might go ahead of Brisbane if the Sydney Swans do win that game, but you expect Geelong and Carlton to win. If they don't, Fremantle...
So this is, of course, if all the other favourites...
Yeah, that's right. So Fremantle could be as high as 2nd if Carlton or Geelong lose, if they both lose. And you can see Melbourne will drop out of the 8, but it's on the flip side that it's a big repercussions for Fremantle, and that is if Melbourne get up. If Melbourne can cause an upset and win this game, Fremantle, who potentially been eyeing off top 2, top 4, will fall out of the 8. So it's a massive game for them. Speaking about full health, Kingy, Fremantle full health now, with Sean Darcy back in, Alex Pearce into the side. This is their best team to pick from.
Yeah, and I think that they've got, and I know we've shown this guy a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, but the more I look at the numbers and the way that Hayden Young is tracking, the more I think he's going to be this year's Isaac Heaney next year. He's on that trajectory as a centre forward player. His damage is unbelievable. Have a look there. You can see that opportunity when you go from a flanker type, whether it be forward or back, to inside mid. 40 more opportunities a week to win the footy at contest or at clearance, and your ability to step forward of centre and have more damage. This guy's kicking is next level. He played a lone hand last week in the first half. It was Hayden Young versus the Hawthorn Football Club, and he was outstanding. So the last 10 weeks of football, he's top 5 in the competition for score involvements. He's been Fremantle's highest rated player round 16, round 17 and round 18. All 3 of those. He's their best player now. He's the one you have to stop, and if you don't stop him, I'm telling you now, he's going to be the 2023 version of Isaac Heaney next year.
All right, big call indeed. Now the Red Rooster crunch time, and what better than that game I referred to earlier, the twilight fixture at the MCG. And I guess it's Collingwood really that are getting the external crunch, but Sam Mitchell's embraced it as far as what it means for the Hawks as well as they continue to rise up. The virtual elimination final.
It is again, isn't it? And they are one of the form sides of the competition. We saw since round 8, the 3rd best team in the comp this year. I don't think they'll fear playing Collingwood at the MCG. I think they'll embrace this big stage of the Hawks. I'm excited for it.
I'm more interested in what the coach had to say, Craig McRae. He's almost making this, he's challenging, he's daring Hawthorn. One, bring the tagger in and watch me as the coach manipulate where Nick Dacos plays and make it a tactical battle between the coaches' boxes. I think he's talking angry now. I think Nice Craig's gone. We're getting angry fly right now, and he's talking a tough game, and I think it'll permeate through the group. They've been too nice for a little while, the Pies, and they've been happy to play in bursts. I feel like this is building after his words today that he wants to take control of this football club right now.
I hope they do consider him because it certainly makes them have to make other decisions around their team, around who plays in the midfield or who plays back when Nick goes there, and when we remove Nick forward, who goes forward for him. So, I hope they do consider that.
And Finn McRae is in the team for Hawthorn, so challenge accepted. Going to be fascinating to see how that plays out.
It will be, because they do. They move Nick Dacos around a lot when he gets tagged, but I think they'll just put the magnet from McGuinness straight to him.
We're seeing Dan McStay, the great emotion around his return. Reasonably quick, certainly historically quick return. He played in the VFL last week, enough minutes to convince them that he's right to go. And I guess, in their situation, they feel like they need to bring him back in and change their mix up front.
Well, it's a risk, isn't it, with Dan McStay? But they've got to this point of the year where they have to take the calculated risk to try and, play finals. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
They wouldn't think it's a risk health-wise, just what he can...
That's right, how quickly he can impact. Absolutely.
But it's fascinating. Certainly is crunch time for Red Rooster, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this one plays out with the Magpies.
Yeah, that's right. And I just want to put it on a couple of defenders. There's been a lot of talk about Darcy Moore, but for the Pies to get back to their best footy, it's when they get the rebound going off half-back and when they intercept the footy and score off it. So this is for the year when your ability to, when you intercept the ball, when it leads to a score. And you can see up until the bye, up until round 15, they're actually pretty good, those Pies defenders. Quaynor was 10th in the league for converting an intercept into a score. Maynard and Darcy Moore. But post-bye, they're just getting no bang for buck. They are not winning intercepts, first of all, and maybe because teams are controlling the ball against them. And when they do, they're not threatening anybody at the moment. So I think for the Pies, when we've seen them at their best, they push hard, they intercept, and they go and bounce. So keeping an eye on the big 3 bit down back.